Have you ever felt the pull to just start over? To trade everything familiar for a shot at something more aligned, more meaningful? Today I'm joined by Hermann, co-founder of the Good Growth Initiative, an organisation that exists to lead people and businesses to their full potential. In this episode, we unpack Adam's incredible journey from burnout in a high-flying corporate role to literally rebuilding his life from a caravan in New Zealand with his wife and dogs. It was a decision that ultimately led to more peace, purpose, and precious time with his young daughter, Poppy. We explore what it truly means to walk away from a secure salary and status in pursuit of alignment and freedom, and how that journey sparked the mission behind the Good Growth Initiative, helping small business owners grow sustainably and with heart. If you feel that you're at a crossroads questioning your current path, or you're simply curious about the mental and emotional shifts that come with building a business aligned to your deepest values, then this conversation is for you. Let's get into it. Adam.
Hello.
Thanks for joining me. What was one of the most difficult moments in your life that turned out to be a blessing, and did you learn anything from it?
I've had plenty of learning moments, which is good. But I think probably the most impactful kind of turning point in my life. I'd been in corporate life for 20 odd years and had some really high stress roles within that time, and basically just had a period of time, probably about 6 months, where I was quite run down. I felt, sort of tired all the time, had some stomach issues that wouldn't go away, just, I guess, physical signs of your
body was telling
burnout.
you, something's going on.
Telling me something.
Yeah.
And, as I'd done many times, I put it down to just, being burnt out or whatever. And I actually got the opportunity to do a mental health first aid course through the company that I was working with. And I went along to that. And I still remember the facilitator, she brought up a slide. It was basically like, hey, here's 11 signs of anxiety and depression. If you have 3 of these, you can be clinically diagnosed with either of those things. And I sort of looked at the 11 and I rated myself a solid 9 out of 11. So, that was the point where I realized that what felt like being run down was actually like some pretty solid depression and anxiety, which I just had never dealt with before, didn't understand until that point. But that was definitely a real eye-opener, and kind of, just gave me some insight into why I was feeling the way I was feeling. Basically just took that seriously and went home and, had a conversation with my beautiful wife and had her full support to make some pretty drastic changes in our lives and, basically just revise our goals and revise our priorities. So we went from, trying to grow a property portfolio and, take on all these high pressure roles to just basically saying like, what are we doing and what's the point really? We sold our house. This was in the space of about 12 months. So sold our house. We bought a vacant block of land and a caravan, and we moved into the caravan and we lived in a caravan for 6 months. We basically took a year off work and with the money that we'd made with the house, went to New Zealand. So we flew the dogs over there to Jasper and Banjo. We bought a little caravan over there and we just drove around for 7 months in New Zealand, and that was during COVID. So we were locked down, and I'm not sure if you know, but the North Island was locked down from the South Island. So basically there was nobody. And we did 4 great walks in that time and did a ski season and,
wow.
Just completely revised our, like I said, what we were working towards. And to this day, we've just always wanted to keep it really basic. We built a tiny home while we were in New Zealand and moved into that when we got back. And we lived in that for about 9 months. And, that for me was the point when I decided that I didn't want to pursue the corporate career long term.
Yeah.
And that was the real turning point where I knew that I wanted to get out of that life and I wanted to, work for myself. And because I guess when I looked at corporate life, or if I take a step back, when I look at everybody that I aspired to be like, that had that level of flexibility and that level of financial freedom, none of them worked for someone else. They all worked for themselves. And, that was me just looking at it and saying, well, I don't know what I want to do yet. I don't know what transferable skills I have or what kind of, offer I have for a client out there in the market. But that was for me the point where I decided I wanted to do that.
Wow.
the rest is history. So
not a small life change.
no,
Not just tweaking this or that. You really went for it. And I mean, what was that like? You speak so freely about it now, and it sounds like an awesome life change, and you really listened to, something deep within you that needed to change. But I mean, that can't have been easy. You left what I imagine to be a pretty good salary at a big corporate job.
Yep.
How scary was it, handing in the resignation or even saying, I want to have a year off? Were you still employed by them in that year? Or?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I'm incredibly grateful for the mentor and boss that I had at the time. So I basically just was completely transparent with, my mental health situation, and we basically put a year plan in. So there was 12 months between when I was diagnosed and when we took the year off. And basically over that time, we made a plan to bring my successor into the business and develop them up so that, I didn't want to leave my people or the business in a bad place. So we kind of like transitioned me out of that role into a more strategic role within the company and brought somebody in to replace me. So that was all kind of part of the plan. And then, I think asking for the year off, I had long service at that point. So I'd been there over 10 years. So it was kind of like 3 months paid, 9 months unpaid. So for us, I think the biggest obstacle that we had to overcome as a couple, myself and my wife, was understanding that, that 9 months of not earning money and still spending money was an investment in our future, an investment in, our mental health and just sort of challenging all of those things that you're told, right? Which is like, you should be saving, you should be working. But it's really cool to see. I think there's a lot more people making that change, and social media has probably been a big driver of that. But it's definitely, I've seen some people locally that have kind of sold up and they're traveling the world for a year and just kind of like taking that time off, because it's a long time between 20 and 60, 20 and 65 to kind of get to that point where you can do that. But that was like a big blocker that we had to just overcome. And we spent that money. We won't get that money back, but just what we've experienced, and you come good. Everybody thinks you'll never recover from a year off work, or selling your house and having to start again or whatever, but you do. You get back into it.
You mentioned it became clear to you wanted that life of flexibility and make more time for family perhaps, or whatever it might be, and just your own mental health obviously is most important. The decision to start a business, did that seep in through that year somewhere, or was it always there, or where did that come from? And when was that decision made, do you think?
It was probably a few years between when I came back to work. So I came back from the year off and worked about another 18 months with the business. And sorry, you said before about handing in the resignation, just to add to all of it. So decided that I wanted to start my own business, and with a business partner at the time, worked up the courage and resigned. And again, my new boss at the time was super supportive of that. I let her know why I wanted to do this, and she was incredible, and still to this day is super supportive of myself and the business. And I think, so I had a 3-month resignation period, and about a month in, we found out we were pregnant with our first little one. And so when I told my boss at the time, she offered to retract the resignation. She's like, hey, if now's not the right time to do this, we'll take it back and you can stay for another year or whatever.
Wow.
But
tempting.
It was tempting. But I think it was just more, we used it as motivation to say, okay, well, what better reason to have flexibility than, to spend time with a new little one and, support Hals through that whole process. And, so, there was quite a lot that went on, and I think really it all just spoke to me about it being the right time. And, there's never a perfect time to walk away from a great salary and, that level of stability. I think the only time where I've questioned it since I left was literally the minute that they put Poppy on Hayley's chest. She'd just been born, and I just had this, what have I done moment it was like a split second, and it's the only time through the whole time where I've actually challenged.
And also,
myself.
what do I do?
And what do I do? Yeah. It's like,
what have I done? What do I do now?
Yes. But yeah, it's so vivid in my mind because it's literally, it's been 18 months since I walked away from the corporate life. And it's the only time where I've actually questioned that decision ever. And, I would never go back after this time.
Wow. Well, I love hearing those stories because I went through it myself of handing in resignation once upon a time, and I know how scary it is and how easy it can be to renege on yourself and go, nah, actually, yeah, okay. Especially if they offer you the job back, like to go, yeah, okay, that's another little challenge to go, yeah, okay, all right. It's easy to back out of that, but you stuck strong and you said, no, I'm going for it. I'm going to give this a crack. I know it's the right decision. So well done.
Thanks.
I remember my boss at Channel 7, I said I resign. I was so scared to do it. And she just said no. She sort of rejected it and handed it back. And I said, well, mate, this is not how I envisioned this going. Like, no, you're supposed to take it. And there's a little wrestle there to get over the line. But
I've practiced this moment and you take this thing.
Yeah, exactly.
In
my head, no, you take it and I get out of here.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And so tell me what the business is, the idea that you had back then, and what did you create with your business partner then?
Yep.
And now for yourself now.
Yeah. So it's the Good Growth Initiative, and essentially we help small, medium business owners scale their businesses. So in effect, everything that I learned through my, corporate life, marketing, sales, leadership, strategy, all of those kind of key elements to scaling a business, I've distilled those down, and I now share those frameworks and coach business owners to do that in their businesses. I think the biggest kind of catalyst to deciding that was going to be the product or where my passion lied was about 5 years ago. A good friend of mine had gone out on his own to start his own business, and he's an electrician. And so he went out, started his own business, and his goal was to just replace his salary working for himself. So he was just sick of working for his boss, super frustrated. And he's like, if I can just replace I think it was 80 grand a year or something like that, and working for myself, then that's what I want to do. And so he did that. He took the plunge. I think they had 1 or 2 little ones at that time. And so I just had the utmost respect for him, right? Because I'm looking at the journey that he was about to go on and comparing that to my kind of, safe world. And I was like, man, that's crazy. But, any support I can give, I'm happy to. And so I finished his first year. We were having a beer and I just asked him, cool, so what next? And he said, I have no idea. I've just been winging it and I'm happy with where I'm at. And so at that point we made the call to just catch up weekly for a beer. And, it was just basically anything that I had learnt that I could help him with. We were going to, just do that over beers. And the deal was we always had to have a beer in our hand when we were having a chat. Maybe not the healthiest approach to it, but, and it was just a good opportunity for us to, reconnect, and after, both having really busy lives. So it was cool. I just enjoyed catching up, and essentially over the 5 years, we just worked together and there was no fee. I didn't charge him or anything like that. It was just us, as mates, kind of like riffing on each other.
Nice.
In that, I think in 4 years he 10x'd his business and sort of grew it to having 4 or 5 team members, and what went from casual beers kind of turned into strategy sessions and more coaching calls, and teaching him a sales process, and helping him turn his conversion from sort of 20% to maybe about 60-70%, just with a couple of little tweaks that to me were just really, really straightforward aspects of sales in that regard. But, what I realized really quickly was he was an incredibly skilled electrician and tradesperson, but running a business is just this whole other skill set. And, to answer your question, why TGGI and why do I have the product that I have is, I just see so many people that have this incredible passion for what they do, and, the skill set that I don't have, which is, like the technical element of their business, but they don't know how to structure a business. They don't know how to, structure a sale or onboard a new employee, or even attract and recruit a new employee. something that I've done thousands of times. So, just seeing that there's this whole other element to a business that they don't have the experience or the capability in yet, that once they kind of learn all of that and they combine the two, they, just become this kind of powerhouse. And that's what I've helped create with my clients. And, with that in mind, the goal is that I won't work with them forever. It's kind of like to come in, help them over 1, 2, 3 years, whatever it kind of takes. And then when they're at a point where they're comfortable and they're confident and capable in what they can do in running the business, then I'll, step out and they keep going.
All right, a quick word from one of our sponsors and then we'll get right back to the show. Today's sponsor is, it's me, Tom from Raw Lens. At Raw Lens, we create impactful video and stills content that captivates your community. If you're a business, organization, or individual with a message to share, then let's chat. Book your free Creative Spark session today at rawlensmedia.com. Let's bring your vision to life. Okay, back to me in the show. Is there a first port of call when you come into businesses, like those early beer chats with that guy? What were some of the things you were talking about and what could you tweak and change straight away that you noticed change and some benefits from?
Yeah, I think the first thing is probably, do they have a plan? So, strategy is probably the term that gets thrown around the most. It's, a lot of the time they get caught up in what's happening on the day-to-day and they're not actually kind of standing back and just looking at the broader business and understanding, where am I going? Where is the industry going? Where are my competitors going and how am I kind of comparing with them? What's my point of difference? So all of those things where...
So easy to work in your business.
Oh,
if you're the
100%.
Technician, if you're the person, it's so easy. And I am still guilty of this in my business of just, I want to do the work. I want to get in it. And how do you pull back though? How do you look back? And
and it's kind of like the term is to zoom in and zoom out. So zooming in is kind of like in the weeds, doing the work, delivering for your clients, and then zooming out is more having that strategic long-term kind of lens. I find it even in my business. So, I'm in the same thing where it's just me at the moment. So, where I'm helping all of my clients with their strategy, I also need to help myself with my strategy. I think the reason why having someone help you with that is because objectivity is so hard to have when you are in your business and you know it better than anybody. And I think sometimes you just sell yourself a story where, either these are my challenges and that's just how it is, or these are my clients, or,
or I'm the only one who can do this.
Or I'm the only one that can do this. That is...
No one can do it like me.
Yep. That is definitely, I would say, one of the biggest challenges. And it's really interesting because I guess from a corporate perspective, I had up to 250 staff reporting into me at once, and that was through multiple levels of management before it got to me. So in that environment, you're forced to delegate. Like, you literally cannot do what the frontline advisor's doing because you're not allowed to put a headset on, and nor would you. So I guess I'd gone from sort of 13 years of being in this kind of corporate model where delegation was my bread and butter, and to now working with business owners that they either don't understand the concept, or they're not skilled in delegating, or they just don't want to that point. Nobody can do it like I can. So yeah, that's probably like one of the biggest opportunities that I find with business owners, is just helping them overcome that fear of delegation, making sure that they're developing their people so that they have the skills to do that job.
Yep.
And I think ultimately a lot of the time they find that even if that person can't do it as good as they can, even if they're delivering it at 80% of what the business owner could deliver, the exponential benefit that you get from being able to now work on the business rather than in the business far outweighs whatever efficiency you lose by, entrusting somebody else to do it. But, I kind of think about, my role as a parent is, cool, I make the peanut butter on toast. She's not allergic to peanut butter. We've already found that out. So it's okay. I make the Vegemite on toast now, but I don't want to have to make her sandwiches forever. So at some point I've got to teach her how to make the sandwich, and maybe, she won't make it as good as me, but at some stage I get to stop making sandwiches, and I'm looking forward to that.
Yep.
moment. Like it's a good moment because then she becomes self-sufficient and, you know.
You can sit back and retire.
Exactly.
What does knowing your numbers mean to you? And especially, you know, for business owners who have come from a job or been employed by someone else, you just get your paycheck and you go about your business and you do your job. I know for me, when I started my business, you know, no idea of what, I'm not a numbers person, no idea what it means. And I actually remember telling my uncle early on, it was probably my first year of business, and I think I had replaced my salary, you know, about, you know, it was 70,000 or somewhere around there. And I'd made that on my own and I felt so proud of myself, and I was all chuffed to my uncle and I'm like, so I made 70,000 this year. And I just remember his face. It was no well done. There was no, oh, that's amazing. It was just like, that's not enough. It's like when you run your business, you've got expenses, you got, you know, this and that, and what's your profit, and all these other things come with it. So that's what I now know, knowing your numbers. But at the time, I was just like, no, I made 70,000 for them, and now I'm doing it for me. That's good, isn't it?
So was the 70,000 revenue or profit?
No, revenue.
Okay. Yeah. So your uncle was right. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, revenue. What does knowing your numbers mean to you?
Yep. I think the numbers are so critical as a point of performance, I guess. So, and I know that makes sense, but let me explain. I think you can have a business that, you know, you're really busy and it seems like you're doing a lot of work for your clients and, you know, you don't have any spare time. So you would think that that means that, you know, you've got good revenue, you've got good profit, all those sort of things. But revenue is not everything. You know, profit is ultimately what you take home at the end of the day as a business owner. And so understanding not only what your revenue line is, but most importantly, what your profit line is, you know, critical to really dictate the performance of that business. I think a lot of people might struggle with the numbers. And if that's not their strong suit, again, that's completely fine. You know, I think it's unrealistic to think that you will be good at everything. So if numbers aren't your strong suit, find someone who does have a strong suit of numbers. So, you know, they're a numbers nerd like myself, or make sure you have a good strategic minded accountant. So, you know, somebody who is not just going to do your tax return at the end of the day, but somebody who is going to give you insights as to where your profit margins are and, you know, where you need to be either tightening your belt or you need to be, even more importantly, investing to kind of grow your business. So, you know, I think gone are the days of, you know, just having to figure it out yourself. I did a Xero advisory course. It was like, I don't know, $1,000 or something like that. And what I learned through that, I still apply through my own business and through my client's business. So anybody has access to that. There's so many YouTube videos around, you know, running a profit and loss statement and, you know, how to pull that apart, how to understand margin versus markup and all those kind of key terms. But, you know, if you were starting from scratch and you just wanted to kind of do a health check on your business, generally my approach would be to run your profit and loss for like the last 3 years, break it down by month and basically compare January to January, March to March, April to April, that sort of thing as you go through the year to just understand over time what's happening with your business. And that's a great way to kind of zoom out from the front line because now you're not thinking about how much money's in the bank. You're actually saying, well, what's happened to my revenue line over the last 3 years? And if I compare the months to each other, I can start to have a look at seasonality and understand, well, you know, has my business grown over that period of time? Have I stagnated? Have I gone backwards? And then, you know, I think the key lines from there that I work with my clients is to understand, okay, so what's your cost of sales? So, you know, if you're selling a product, it would be all the costs that kind of ladder up into how much that product costs you. And then you've got your operating expenses, which is, you know, salaries, rent, running your vehicle, all that sort of stuff. And at the very, very basics, if you just had a look at your revenue over time, your cost of sales over time, and your operating expenses over time, you'll be able to see how they're performing in relation to your revenue. And yeah, you know, just as a very basic starting point there, I think you'll be able to get a feel for what is the health of your business through reviewing your numbers. I think the last thing that I'll say is it's really important to not let the numbers drive your behaviors or drive your mindset. Some people stare at their profit and loss statement, or they stare at their bank account, and like that's how they kind of measure their success. But it's important to understand that the numbers are just the output of your inputs. So what you do on any given day, the conversations that you have, the coaching sessions that you have with your people, how you market your business, all of those things are actually going to have an impact on your numbers. Just running the report every month and kind of willing it to change is not going to have an impact.
Do you think people underprice, their service or their product quite often? Do you see that? Is that somewhere where you start?
Yeah. So once you've got a feel for, I guess, the profitability of the business, that's definitely a point where you can come back and look at what you're charging. I think every business is different. If you're, a service-based business like myself, it's important that you're selling the value of your impact rather than the time. If you get caught up on just selling yourself at an hourly rate, then you're effectively limiting your ability to, create revenue and create profit in your business. If you're selling a product, or my friend with the electrician's business, it's really important that you understand all the different aspects that go into your product when you're calculating your pricing. So it's not just about how much the air conditioner costs, for example. It's the ducting, it's the copper, it's the gas that you've got to use. It's all of those sort of things. Plus, when you're then calculating the cost of your staff, it's not just their hourly rate. It's their hourly rate plus their holidays, plus their super, plus their sick leave. All of those things then need to be calculated in your costs of business. And then when you're adding a margin on top of that, that's what you're adding the margin to. So I think when you talk about people, there's two things. Underpricing would be that they don't have a clear understanding of all the costs that go into running their business. So the conversation with your uncle, for example, he's probably thinking about all the costs rather than, the revenue. Underpricing, I think, is something different. And that's where, it's important to understand what value you're adding to the client, where you're pricing yourself in market versus your competitors, and kind of working out that sweet spot. And ultimately, the measure that I use to work out pricing a lot of the time is your conversion. So if you're converting at 100%, you're not charging enough. If you're converting at 20%, but you've got a good solid sales process, then you might say, okay, are we charging too much? Or are we asking too much for the product? There's ways you can find out. It's just simply asking clients that don't buy with you why they went somewhere else. And if a lot of clients are saying, well, you're too expensive, then you can either look at your pricing or have a look at your sales process and the sort of value that you're adding. So I think it's twofold.
Yep. You were the head of sales, is that right? For $1 billion corporation.
Yep.
I want to make more sales. How do I do that? How do I can you distill the sales process down, or is it always different? Like what are the key components of a sales process that works?
Yep. Really good question. So I think for me, it's not the super structured. I ask these questions at these points, and I get the response from the client.
Yep.
That's how a lot of sales processes are taught, quite a linear approach. Okay. Unfortunately, when you're selling to people, it doesn't work like that. They could ask a question that they're not meant to ask until the end of the conversation, and then you're kind of like thrown out. So I think really the sales process that I've always aimed to teach and I continue to work with my clients is more of a conversational style approach. And it's completely centered around the client. So it's not about you pushing your product or trying to, go through the features and benefits and all of these sort of things, which, a lot of sales processes focus on. For me, it's starting with, do you understand your client? So do you understand their personality type? Do you understand what their motivators and drivers are? Do you understand what their biggest challenges are and why they've come to you to kind of at least have a conversation about that? And so much of that depends on the questions that you ask at the start of the call. And I guess getting over yourself in the sense of it's not about you and your business and your product. It's actually about your client and trying to solve their problems. So, look, I think the first, it's the old adage, you only get one chance at a first impression. So making sure you set a great first impression initially, and whether that's, do you look like you know what you're talking about? Are you focused on them? And then once you've kind of made that first impression, it's about building a connection with your client. So, the term that gets bandied around a lot is rapport. What does that actually mean? It means that, the person is comfortable speaking to you. So are you matching their tone? Are you matching their pace? Are you using similar language to what they're using? If you're having a conversation, do they look comfortable? Are you making them comfortable? And, once you just build that connection and a genuine kind of foundation of rapport to work with, that's when you start to really work to understand, like, what are their challenges? If you could solve one problem for them, what would that be?
Yeah.
And then once you kind of understand what their problems are and what the challenges are, then that's where you align your product or your offer or your service to actually solving that problem.
Sure.
And then at that point, it just becomes about price.
Yep. What about relationship? I mean, you built rapport, but you've also built rapport with lots of other different clients. You're a busy person. How do you continue that strong relationship? Because a client you already have is easier than a client that's you've got to go get. So do you have any advice around just forming relationships and nurturing relationships, I guess?
Yep. Yeah, it's been cool to see. And again, I guess my specific experience is coming from a corporate where they spend millions and millions of dollars on leads, and the leads just come to you, versus now starting my own business and understanding, okay, this prospecting and, exactly what you're saying about, building these relationships that may not return any value to your business for years to come. It's probably, I've been in business for about 14, 15 months now, and I'm only just starting to see some return on, relationships that I've been building and maintaining over the past 12 or 15 months. Look, I think it's about making sure that you are investing your time wisely. So don't go to every coffee that you're asked to go to. I think that's been a big learning, because a lot of people just want to have coffee and catch up and if you're a one-man band, or even if you don't have, a lot of team members or time, it's not just an hour of your day. It's probably 2.5 hours by the time you kind of get ready, go, come back and get back into work. So, if that coffee, if there is a strategic benefit to that relationship, I know it sounds quite cold, but if there's a benefit of you getting to know that person and you can see that your businesses can help one another, then go for it. But if it's just a coffee for coffee's sake, then you've got to really challenge yourself and say, is this worth my time?
It's a tricky thing about networking, especially, isn't it?
Yep.
We're all there to make those alliances and try and strike up some business or relationship, but you can't be that cold, I guess. It's that fine line, isn't it? Yeah. Look,
I've joined a lot of taken up a lot of memberships with committees and stuff like that in the last sort of 14, 15 months, and over time, I've whittled down to just 2 that I support and attend regularly. And the reason for that is it's twofold. So I found, I guess, my people, in the sense that, one of the kind of groups, huge group, probably like 500-600 members, that sort of thing. But every time I would go there, I just left depressed. And I think it was because, I kind of labeled it as this small business syndrome, where everybody that was there to kind of wallow in their problems and challenges. And, it just became this opportunity for everybody to say how hard it is and how tough it is. And, nobody was really talking about how to solve problems or how to help each other. They just wanted to vent. And I was like, that's great, but
get a therapist.
100%, invest the money in a specialist. That was, I felt actually a good moment when I made that conscious decision to just say, no, I'm not going to keep investing my time over here because I have such little time. I've found a couple of groups now that they're just super welcoming. they're there to grow, they're there to challenge themselves. And through those connections, I've formed the best kind of strategic partnerships that I've actually had to date. And I think it's just because you're working with like-minded people that, want to grow, they want to challenge themselves, they want the best for their clients. And sometimes the best for their clients is actually for their clients to work with you and vice versa. And, I would say I've referred more people than I've gotten back through those partnerships. But I understand that, over the next 3-5 years, that will
reciprocate,
come back my way. So, yeah.
That's awesome. All right, a quick word from one of our sponsors, and then we'll get right back to the show. Today's sponsor is... it's me, Tom from Raw Lens. At Raw Lens, we create impactful video and stills content that captivates your community. If you're a business, organization, or individual with a message to share, then let's chat. Book your free Creative Spark session today at rawlensmedia.com. Let's bring your vision to life. Okay, back to me in the show. Have you got any stories from clients you've worked with where you've seen massive positive change?
Yeah. Probably the biggest growth that has been realized was, my friend Matt with the electrician business. They've continued to grow, and they've got 9 team members now, and they've just got their own sort of corporate commercial space. So that was a big goal for them to be able to sort of buy their own shed, and so he's now got that business under management. So he's now employed an operations manager, which means he can take on like a true GM role within the business. So, seeing somebody that started on the tools 5 years ago to now having an operations manager in the business and to be in a true sort of GM function, I think that's probably been like the coolest growth that I've seen over that period. Yeah. I guess if I was to say like what are the key things that we've worked on to get to that is having a strategy. So we still do annual strategies, and we break those down into quarterly kind of workshops, and there's always a plan in place. We monitor performance every month and just have a performance check-in where we see what's going on and make changes if we need to. He's got a really strong lead generation process. He's got a great sales process, so he still does all the selling. He's fine-tuned his operations and just delivers outstanding service for his clients. And he's got a really good, cross-sell, upsell client retention process as well. So, even in the quiet times where the industry is quiet, he's still, probably managing 80% of his work would be referrals or repeat business. So, that's just the foundation of his success. The other client that I think of, it's a completely different challenge. So basically, they reached out to me because they'd grown too quickly. So they'd launched their business, and within about 2 years, they kind of got to a point where they'd achieved their revenue goals, which was really exciting. But they were starting to get feedback from their team members about being stressed or, no clarity around like who's doing what. And, they lost a couple of people throughout that time. So they reached out with the goal of kind of just sharpening things up and tightening up their processes and how they go about, doing what they do. So,
how do you sharpen up your processes and systems?
Yep.
How do you have any advice? Like, is there programs or software that you use to document that, or what works well?
Yeah. There's probably a couple of things. So I'd say first thing to tighten up would be the roles and responsibilities. So getting clear on who does what. And if you can get to that level of, specifics, understanding when you do those tasks, that's really, really important. And that's definitely been the key to their success is because they'd gone from this, couple of people kind of working in this clinic to now 4, 5, 6 people. They were delivering outstanding service for their clients, and that's why they grew so quickly. They've got this like really good product, and they're really clear on the level of service they want to offer. They just got a bit muddied around who does what, and that was never. It just kind of got exacerbated as they grew the team. So I'd say get really clear on who is responsible for what, and if 2 people are responsible for one thing, it's never going to happen. So it's like got to be that kind of clear. From a systems perspective, getting clarity around your your SOPs. So there's products out on the market now with AI. I'm working with something at the moment called Scribe. where, standard operating procedures to write used to be just an absolute pain in the bum. But now, using AI, you can, in a very, very short period of time, basically just either voice to text it or just pop some screenshots in, whatever.
Yeah.
And then that creates like a really comprehensive SOP. The reason why that's important is, start with your critical functions within the business. It makes sure that everybody is on the same page with how you do those critical functions and how they're performed. You'll find that the standard of execution will get better because now everybody is doing it to that same kind of standard level. And it means that as you scale, onboarding becomes a lot easier because you can basically just hand people a playbook and say, this is how we do what we do.
Yep.
And you can fast track people's development.
Love it. Awesome. So, speaking to your friend with the electrician business, and you've done it yourself, you've jumped out of a paying job to do your own thing. There are potentially people listening out there. They might want to, start their own gym. They might want to start a florist. They might want to be a whatever. But they're scared, right? Like they might be just a bit too scared to make that leap. Do you have any advice on getting started?
The first thing that I would give them is the confidence to know that if they're currently doing a great job in their role for their company, and the business that they work for is making a profit, then they can confidently say that their services are worth profitable money in the world, right? And that was kind of like the mental shift that I had to go through was if I'm getting paid what I'm getting paid, which was a very, very good salary, and the company I'm working for is making a profit, then they're making a profit on my time and on my expertise. So if I go out into the market, then I should be able to make what I'm earning plus the profit that the company is currently making. It might be like a really, sort of black and white approach, but for me, it gave me the confidence to know that my services are sought after and that I could charge for those services. If you're looking to, start your own thing, I was listening to a great podcast the other day, and it was kind of the concept of testing the idea before you launch. And I think now more than ever, there's these, sort of ways to do that. So whether it's, sending out a survey to 1,000 people or setting up a landing page online and running, some Google ads for $30 a day or something like that. And basically just testing the idea before you launch to just get a feel for what the appetite is for your product. I think from there, just starting with a really basic approach, and you might start it as a side hustle if you're, really concerned about stepping away from your job. I think the other thing is understanding what are you willing to sacrifice personally to launch this thing. So, whether that's selling your house and living in a caravan for 6 months to, very extreme example of that. It was the best time of my life, honestly. We had one cup each, one plate each, and we were never happier. So, just gave a bit of perspective on what you can sacrifice to kind of, get through that first year, because the first year from an earnings perspective is always the worst. And I think a lot of businesses fail because people don't allow for that first year. But once you get through the first year, second year, if you're back earning what you were earning, fantastic. Third year, fourth year, fifth year, you can expect that you're going to see the return on that investment. But I'm 14 months in and I just wish I did it sooner. I think that's probably the biggest thing that I've learned over the last 14, 15 months. So,
and we were speaking about that off camera before we started this filming. But I think the reason why you wish you did it earlier, or the reason why you're loving it now, is that you've got a young girl. You're a relatively young dad, 11 months in. What are the benefits of being a business owner and having a family?
Yeah, I think I've got a young daughter, but I'm not a young dad, I would say. And my knees remind me of how old I am before we started. But look, she's 11 months old, Poppy. She's just incredible. And, I think about the life that I would have had with her so far if I was still in a corporate world, and it just, like that's a huge motivator, as you say, for me, never going back, because, I think about leaving for work at 8 o'clock in the morning and getting home at 6 on a good day. I'd probably have maybe an hour and a half with her sort of over the whole course of the day. And I'd be buggered because I've, got up, drove, worked, all that sort of stuff. Whereas, now I kind of, I hang out with her a few mornings a week. We'll just go and have a daddy-daughter coffee date somewhere and find a new park or playground that, we haven't seen before. I get to see her 11, 12, 20 times a day, however often I want to see her, between meetings, just ducking in. And, it sounds corny, but I think she hears the front door open now, and you see her just sort of whip around and her eyes light up. And, that's definitely the best part of this whole thing. And I think the biggest goal that Hals and I had for the business was to create a business where we could work from anywhere in the world. And so from day dot, all the workshops that I run with my clients, if I choose to do them in person, that's because, I want to, and the client might live locally. But the whole business has been designed to be able to, run from anywhere in the world. And that's a big part of what we want to do with Poppy, is to be able to travel and, go and spend 3 months in Japan working from there, and, rent out the house here or whatever. I think to your question before about, like starting up a new business, I think always think through the lifestyle that you want to create and what role the business plays in your life in the next sort of 3, 5, 10 years. Because I see a lot of people get trapped in a job effectively because they start their own business, and, it's very, they need to have a warehouse, or they need to be here to service their clients or whatever. And, they just kind of get stuck in buying their own job effectively. So, it's got to align to your personal goals, and there's got to be that really nice integration there. And if you land that well, then that's where I think, you'll just absolutely love it.
Amazing. And I always finish off podcasts with this question, and thank you so much, by the way, for coming in today and sharing your wisdom. And as one business owner to another, it's just really cool and inspiring when I hear people leave their high-paying jobs and throwing it all on the line to see what happens.
Crazy bastards. Yes.
Crazy bastards out there. So where are you, Adam, at most peace?
I think if I'm being very specific, at a winery on Waiheke Island outside of Auckland. I don't know if you've ever done it, if you're into wine, but
I have.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
look,
it's a great spot.
Yeah. So, Hals and I have been together for 10 years. And our whole kind of courtship was just spent traveling New Zealand and, by winery. And I think there's just something special about sitting out there in the sun, cold shardy, whatever you're into. Just the world seems to just kind of pause, at least for that minute. And if it's not that, it's on the snow. So nice. Oh, you just took me back there. I think it's time to go back to Waiheke Island. Yes.
Amazing. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you. Had a great time.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching the show. This podcast is truly a passion project for me and the small but awesome team behind the scenes. We pour our hearts into bringing you these honest and insightful conversations, but I can't tell you how much it helps when you hit that follow or subscribe button. The show gets bigger, which means we can expand the production and we can continue to bring in amazing guests from all walks of life. Please help us to do this thing that we love and hit that follow or subscribe button. We appreciate you being here. Thank you.